A food bank for the brain is how the writer Lee Child, who is the creator of the character Jack Reacher, which has led not only to books but films, and who is a man who has sold 100 million books, has described his childhood library in Perry Bar in Birmingham to us. He spoke from the US early this morning after news that the place he knew and loved as a child is one of 4 Birmingham libraries slated for closure under plans proposed by the City Council. Others will open for a reduced number of hours. I asked Lee Child to take us back to his childhood in Birmingham and when he first went to the library in Tower Hill and what it meant to him.
I do, absolutely. We started out at our local library in Handsworth Wood, where we lived, which was tiny. It was just in a little hut, a sort of post-war survival. Somebody put it in a wooden hut, and it didn't have very many books at all. And I'd read them all by the time I was 6. And I thought, okay, that's it. I've read all the books now. But then I heard that there's another library, there's more than one. And it was a epic trip. It was quite a long walk. And then it was like something out of the Lord of the Rings. We crossed this incredibly scary high footbridge over the canal and then turned a corner. And there it was, this immense glass-fronted palace just full of books. I couldn't believe it. And I went there at least once a week before I left for university.
And was this the Perry Bar Library, which is now at risk of closure under these new proposals?
It is, and they got in touch with me a while ago to tell me about it, and I saw the coverage. And of course, it's not a huge glass-fronted palace. It's a perfectly normal-sized place. That was just my kid's impression. But what I do remember, I'm so sentimental about it and so emotional about it, because that building saved my life at the time. It enabled it. It largely created it. I just read and read and read and was lost in every subject, anywhere in the world, any time of history. I just adored it. And now it's under threat. And I completely understand, first of all, Birmingham's financial problems due to underfunding, and then this mistake that has come back to haunt them with the financial penalty they had to pay. I understand they got no money. And I understand that my experience was more than 60 years ago when the world was totally different. I mean, you and I would be talking on the home service back then, not Radio 4. And so people are going to say, yeah, that was then, this is now. What's the connection? Well, the connection is certainly, yes, information and entertainment has been totally changed because of the digital world. But fundamentally, if you take a step back, what was that library providing to the community? It was providing a refuge, a resource, a place that kids like me could go and feel like they were fitting in. But also adults, they would go. They were taking qualifications for jobs or night school or whatever. They would use it too. Everybody used it. The hardest thing in politics, I think, is to say, I don't know. What is the role of libraries going to be in the future? The honest truth is we don't know, but it's going to be something really important. So I feel like if you've got to cut costs somewhere, that's a very sad thing. But don't cut them from libraries, because you are amputating a huge future for a lot of people.
Can you say, Lee, that Jack Reacher wouldn't have happened had it not been for Perry Bar Library?
Absolutely. And you speak to any writer, they'll tell you the same thing, that those early years of reading for decades, that's what turns you into a writer. So no book would ever get published if it wasn't for reading early in your life. And the way things were, my parents were lovely people and would buy us books if they could afford it, but that was twice a year, at your birthday and Christmas. And so if you wanted to read anything else ever, you had to go to the library.
And was it also a space for you? It was later on, was it a space that you lingered in, or was it always a space that you went to and you found a new book and you discovered that there was no end to the books out there?
That's what I loved about it, the endless choice. And I wasn't one of those guys that sat in the library to read. I would go in, select the books, and officially you were only allowed 2 books a week. But we operated a kind of Chicago voting system in our house that if anybody ever visited, grandparents, uncles, whatever, we made them sign up for a library card. And our dog even had a library card so that we could get like 6 each a week. And it was fantastic.
You gamed the system.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
But then how do you feel knowing about this? Because what you're describing, what it gave you, yes, times have changed, but human needs remain the same. Indeed, society's needs, because we need the writers of the future. We need the Lee Childs and characters like Jack Reacher of the future.
We do, but it's not just writers. It's obviously very linear. I read some books and now I write some books, but dozens of my friends would go with me who are not writers. One of them ended up an engineer on the London Underground. Another one was a doctor. It grows children. It allows them to find what they're interested in, check it out for years, and then make a decision about interests and careers later.
Do you think people like you could step in, people who were part of the community or are part of the community, and save this? I
think yes. I help out wherever I can financially with any issue, but it's too big for any one individual or any group of individuals. This has to be a policy that is valued centrally and promoted centrally and funded centrally. It's too big for donations. Well, let me say, I hope people are going to do what they can in the short term, but the long term has got to be a funding solution, and libraries should be very near the top of the list.
Lee Child, thank you very much. That takes us to the sport now, which is with Simon Mundy.